This is Shane Gibson's podcast from closingbigger.net. Ironically, this is my third take of this particular podcast today. The podcast is on why salespeople fail to evolve, but the real topic is the art of creative selling, or tapping into creativity or curiosity. Now, I had this thing all structured and written down and PowerPoint to roll through and read as I go through my notes. And I realized that part of one of the reasons why I was stuck is I was kind of doing things the way I always do them, and it was affecting my flow to really talk about this concept of creativity. So I think this will be a little bit more of a shorter podcast. It also may be a little bit less structured, but I want to dig into some of the important factors of why curiosity and creativity are vital for selling and sales innovation. So when we think of innovation, we think about innovation in technology or in engineering, for instance. But we don't often think about it within an organization is innovation around the act of selling. Yet innovation within the sales process can actually have a huge impact on the organization and our level of success. Tweaking 2 or 3 things or throwing out the way we've always done things to shift, to adapt to the marketplace can have a massive impact on our organizational success. So I always look at what are some of the symptoms of lack of curiosity as a sales professional. Number one, there's this debate I've had with a few people, other sales authors and clients, people in hiring teams who are responsible for recruiting salespeople. And the question is curiosity is a really important part of being a successful seller. Creativity and innovation is as well. And curiosity and creativity often don't just start pleasantly with ease. They often start in the middle of a challenge, a crisis, or a shift around what we know have always worked, but all of a sudden it doesn't. So that's where creativity starts. So it's an important aspect to have creative and curious sellers if we want to continually adapt and grow. So the question is, can you create a curious person, or do they have to come curious? Should I be looking to hire curious people? I would say it's twofold. A, ideally, when you're recruiting salespeople, you want to look for curious, creative people who are willing to innovate. But then when you hire them, don't be surprised when they want to paint outside the lines. That's part of it. The other one is there are ways to instill curiosity in ourself. I don't know if you can force someone to be creative or train them to be creative, but you can give them the tools to do so and the room to do so and see who takes to it. So when I think of lack of creativity or curiosity, how that manifests itself in sales is number one, an unwillingness to even be open to the fact that the market has changed. This is someone who's always been comfortable calling on certain types of accounts, and that's where they've had their success. And yet the market has changed, and even though we've pointed it out in black and white to them that this has changed, they're resistant to shifting the way they sell, right? That's a lack of curiosity or willingness to be creative and learn something new. The other one is the lack of the ability to actually see change. So someone who isn't curious is not going to necessarily see shifts around them. They're very focused on what they know to be true and what they're comfortable with. Another one, and this is a big indicator for me, is when they show up and they're really great at pointing out problems, but they bring very few solutions or ideas to the table or have tried to solve it on their own. Their first step is to complain about it, instead of looking at it going, how do I change or shift or solve this challenge? So curious salespeople, on the other hand, are someone who they've tried 2 or 3 different ways to reach a key account, and they ask questions like, what other methods of contact have I not tried? Who do I know that's selling into this same company or industry that might have a way to introduce me? Who on my team is effective at this? What if I shifted this, or I called a different time of day, or I sent them a courier package with a note in it instead of an email, right? These are some of the things, when I think about curious sellers, they're willing to really look at different approaches and step outside of what they're comfortable with. Also, often we'll find that lack of curiosity, lack of creativity also manifests as an unwillingness to look silly or make mistakes, right? This is what we don't want to step out of our confines. And even when we've made an error, to admit it. When we've made a mistake or we've failed, we again blame externally or we downplay it instead of dissecting it and evaluating it and iterating upon it. So creativity is absolutely vital, curiosity is vital, but what are some of the things we can do to develop ourselves from a creative perspective? So I think part of it is it's a muscle we develop. And I think that where it often starts is understanding the levels of learning. So the first level of learning we look at is that in any task, we start off with being unconsciously unskilled. We don't know, we don't know. So this is where it might be that I have always nurtured certain types of accounts in my region, and I've only got referrals. That's how I developed the business. Then all of a sudden, I get a new account plan, and I'm expected to bring in 25 or 30% more revenue next year from new accounts. Okay, that's a fair bit. And all of a sudden, I realize that referrals, based historically, aren't going to get me there. Neither is direct emails, right? I've tried it, I've worked through it, and the volume of emails required to get through these key account managers, and I know that I have to go off and networking at events, and I'm not great at that in-person networking. And so all of a sudden what occurs is maybe I don't know. So I decide this is what I'm going to do as a plan. I decide I'm going to go out there and network in the community. I get out to a major event and I stand against the wall. Or I start off conversations and it's awkward. Or I don't even know how to connect with the right people when I'm at these events or industry functions. So some people, what they'll do is they've moved to that next level. They were unconsciously unskilled. Now they're consciously unskilled. Oh, I kind of suck at this networking thing. I'm uncomfortable. I think I embarrassed myself. I said a couple of the wrong things. And so this is where we make the choice. The salesperson who maybe is lacking curiosity and willingness to grow will step back, go back to the office and say, how can I do this remote? How can I get marketing to do this? How can I blame the marketplace? Where a curious person will look at it and go, where can I develop this skill set? Who can teach me? Who can I observe? What could I do differently next time to break the ice better? What type of research can I do before I go? And they get curious about how to get better. And so this is something that isn't always natural. And it might be, you know what? I don't want to go to other people's networking events. A creative idea is, I'm going to do my own. What if I hosted my own? What if I brought in some peers? What if we helped cross-market our solutions from a bunch of non-competitive companies that cater to the same market? And they start to get really creative about breaking the mold of the sales process. So these are the difference is the one person who lacks curiosity or creativity or the willingness to maybe make a mistake will recede back to the workplace to do what they've always done and probably hope that things will change. And in many cases, at the end of the year, when we review and we haven't hit our numbers, what's going to change is our employment. Or we get uncomfortable in the upfront, we get curious, we make a bunch of new mistakes, but we get better. And at the end of the year, we've hit those numbers. So it is a willingness to learn and shift and try new things that's really vital in the sales process. So what do I do to develop this muscle of curiosity? Well, one of them for me, the next step here, I jumped out of the steps. So now they're unconsciously unskilled, they're consciously skilled, but over a period of time, after they've held enough events and done enough networking and it becomes second nature to them, then they become consciously skilled. They realize that, hey, I'm actually good at this. And if I apply the key principles and I overcome some of my anxiety before I go to the event, that actually once I get there, now with the principles I've got and my ability to communicate and the research I've done in the background, I'm succeeding. And then eventually they become really subconsciously skilled, where 2 or 3 years into it, you can parachute them into any industry event anywhere, and they're comfortable meeting new people and making connections and having the right conversations. And so the key is, the real pivotal point between whether we're going to succeed or not is that willingness to discover what we're not good at and then get curious about improving our capacity to do so and get creative around our approach to getting better as well. So that's that curiosity and creativity combined that will drive us forward as sales professionals. So what do I do if I feel stuck? Well, number one, I don't believe that anyone lacks curiosity and creativity. They just may lack it in the workplace. So I can think of a salesperson where they actually seem to lack creativity and curiosity and the willingness to learn. And then I was surprised as we started to talk about their passion around ice hockey, about the number of extra hours a week they put in. They got a personal coach over and above, and this person was in their 40s, over and above. So they're investing in themselves later on in their life. Over and above that, like their own personal coach, they're watching videos, They're taking lessons on skating specifically. They're out there trying different approaches. They're hanging out with peers and getting better beyond just what's happening in the practice in the ice, and they're excelling. And part of it is, this is a personal passion. They know they were never going to play in the NHL. This was really something about a local league, but for them, they were curious and excited about getting better. And they made all kinds of mistakes on the ice. They had all kinds of failures and flubs initially, and they felt awkward, but they had that curiosity and that willingness to invest and get creative. I can think of, we can often get creative in the way that, maybe I'm in marketing and I'm using the same old approaches and I'm not getting creative, but for some reason on the weekends, I get super creative about going to different vintage stores, looking at different types of fashion, and really maybe also I'm really curious about different types of foods and cultures and language. And so most of us in somewhere in our life are curious and creative. So it's actually taking that mindset we already possess and thinking, how can I apply that in the workplace, right? And so I often look at what is like my attitude within martial arts. I think about, I'm not a natural martial artist, and I've got a few what might be considered learning challenges as far as being able to absorb visual information and movements, where I have to slow it down and break it down and ask for extra help and practice 3 times as much as most people before it really sticks with me. But I do it and I push at it and I get curious and I think, what is the language I use, right? And so I think about it as, when I don't see something, when I'm in martial arts, when I'm watching a form, I don't gather it, something clicks in that goes, ask for help. Yet in business, historically, I've done the opposite, where I'll sit there on my own and maybe freeze and not ask for help or think about how I can not do that thing again versus leaning in to the gap. And so once we start to realize that I've already succeeded in other parts of my life and I've been curious and creative and willing to learn, how do I shift that internal language around, great, here's an opportunity, I need to ask for help, and apply that across the board. The other way to do it is to make sure in all parts of our life, or in many of them, we're actually putting ourselves into positions where we are uncomfortable, we are unfamiliar, we do have the potential to be embarrassed. So it might be something as simple as the fact that I take a public speaking course because I'm not comfortable with public speaking. Or maybe I take a dance class, which I did with my partner a few years back. We took swing dancing. And level 1 went well for me. Level 2, I found very, very challenging initially, to the point where I wanted to quit. Thank God I did it with her, because I was accountable to somebody else. And she looked at me and said, well, I'm going to keep doing this with or without you on Thursday nights. So you can just stay at home if you need to, but I'm doing this for me. Now for me, I did it because I wanted something to do with her and for us to spend quality time together. So I was motivated enough to go back and try again. And so it was a bit of a negotiation, but what I did is I said, hey, well, let's do level 2 again, because I think I really missed it. And she said, great, but what are you going to do differently this time? And I said, well, I'm going to practice more. I'm going to observe more videos. I'm going to work on my rhythm. And I really invested more. And that was part of realizing that, hey, I was unconsciously unskilled, but I also had to get creative and curious about how I was going to learn more effectively, because I wasn't absorbing the information. But what happened was really interesting, is once I got moving with dance, it actually helped me in areas of my martial arts where I was all of a sudden lighter on my feet and I was picking up forms faster. I was willing to be a little bit more awkward in front of my peers on the mat instead of sort of stepping back and observing and taking things slowly. And so it was interesting to see that curiosity or getting uncomfortable actually helped me be comfortable being uncomfortable in other parts of my life and even my work. So find something, in my opinion, even in your personal life and in your business life, which makes you uncomfortable, that you need to grow and get curious about doing it. Now here's the key. David Goggins, who wrote the book Can't Hurt Me, one of my favorite quotes from him is that the only thing that changes our DNA is discipline. And so from a creative perspective, this is really important, is I need to consistently schedule and create activities and opportunities to get outside of my comfort zone and get curious and creative about developing myself in new ways. And so this could be something as simple as, I haven't been that curious about the target market I sell into. I've been making a lot of assumptions. I haven't been learning and developing. I'm working off the same playbook I've been working off for the last 5 years. I need to devote 30 minutes a day to get curious about my clients, personas, their challenges, the marketplace, how our solutions impact them, our competitors, what my peers are doing, and make it a consistent commitment that 30 minutes a day, I'm going to get curious, educate myself, and develop myself. Then the other one might be something as simple as I'm going to get better at writing outbound emails, right? So one thing is to play with a template. The other one is to take 3 or 4 different courses on it. Look what our peers are doing. Look what our competitors are doing and see if I can really get good at it and experiment at it and be willing to fail at it. And so find a couple key aspects of your sales process that you need to be curious and innovate around. But also what's going to help you do that is get uncomfortable in your personal life. Try some new stuff with it. Try some new stuff. Do things that are going to help you expand your creativity and your willingness to kind of submit to your ego, so to speak, or work in spite of your ego. And I find these things together really can help develop that creative drive. So what are the benefits of that creativity for us as a sales professional? Well, number one is if we don't get curious, if we're not creative, and we just keep doing what we've always done, in many cases the marketplace has shifted. And there is no such thing, in my opinion, as just staying stable in the sales process or in selling. We're either growing and iterating and evolving with the marketplace, or we're slowly becoming irrelevant in our sales and communications methods and our value propositions. So at the end of the day, if we're not willing to change and develop, what we'll have at the end of the year is probably an empty sales funnel. We'll have a lack of momentum and personal growth, and we'll have less to offer our clients. Because remember, sales is really about leadership. And leadership is really about growing. You can't follow someone if they're not growing. So every time I come to the table with my clients, if I have something new to offer, and if I'm constantly improving my ability to communicate and connect with people, outreach, and I'm learning in the marketplace, even if I'm having some fun in my personal life and growing, often that shows up in the workplace and helps us move from product peddler and order taker to actually trusted advisor and leader in the eyes of our clients, prospects, friends, and community, in my opinion. So get curious, get creative, and I don't believe that any of us are stuck against our own will, so to speak, in sales. We're not a victim of our situation. In fact, from a sales perspective, we have every opportunity to change the way we sell, change the way we think, develop new skills, go get a new job or a new position if we need to. But the reality is it's up to us to make those shifts, but we're not going to move forward unless we get curious, creative, and innovative and really start to question. And this is what I want to finish off with. Is anything you're certain is true about the sales process and sales success? Question it. Be open to questioning what you've always known to be true about sales. And on the other side, anything that's unknown to us, whether it's artificial intelligence technologies, new ways of selling, new target markets, be curious about it. Get in the habit of being curious. Curiosity, creativity, and innovation will make us invaluable, but it also for us, I think, growth creates value and meaning in our work. And that's contagious. Someone who loves their work, who we can tell they're excited about it, there's almost a magnetism when we're doing business with them. So that's my challenge to you. Pick 2 areas in your personal life and your business life to get creative and innovative in, schedule it, and make it that daily discipline that will eventually change the DNA of how we approach our career. This is Shane Gibson's podcast from closingbigger.net.